Thank you, Sam. Good evening, one and all. On behalf of Council, I recognise the traditional custodians of the land and pay tribute to Elders past, present and emerging. As councillors of Ku-ring-gai Council, we should always be aware that the decisions that we make affect the daily lives of those we represent. Let us all make these decisions with knowledge, goodwill and respecting the view of others. Before we start this evening's meeting, I would like to outline a few points in regards to the proceedings. Tonight's meeting will be live streamed on the Council's website and only councillors and Council staff will be shown on camera. The webcast of the meeting is available on Council's website. The webcast will commence once the Mayor is seated and will cease if Council goes into a confidential session where the public and press are excluded pursuant to Section 10A of the Local Government Act. Council meetings remain open to the public as observers, but in line with the Code of Meeting Practice, speakers will now address the Council via the monthly public forum and not at Council meetings. All present tonight must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. Mobile phones should be switched to silent or switched off. Councillors and Council staff must declare and manage any conflicts of interest that they may have in relation to any item of business that is the subject of the meeting agenda this evening. Apologies. All councillors are present this evening. General Manager, any staff apologies?
Mr Mayor, Director Bevan is on leave and Miss Leaf is Acting Director of Community here this evening.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Councillors, any declarations? We have a number of lights on. I will go with Councillor Wheatley first. So you're declaring a conflict of interest. Non-pecuniary, non-significant, and you'll be leaving. Thank you. Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Items GB1, the President of the Main Street Theatre for Young People is a friend of mine through the days our children were Scouts together. That's a non-pecuniary interest. And also item GB12, concerning the Town Hall, as Councillor Smith noted last month, the person probably most responsible for Council owning the Ku-ring-gai Town Hall is my father. When he was the Mayor, he, along with the Town Clerk of the day, led the Council acquiring the Town Hall on behalf of the people. So that, again, it's a non-pecuniary interest. I'm not sure whether we call it loyalty or duty of honour, or whatever we call it. My father was certainly instrumental. His name is on the plaque in the Town Hall, not simply because he happened to be there as Mayor when it was open, but he really did lead the acquisition. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennon. Councillor Kay.
I've got two. So GB1, the council sponsorship application. So this is an add-on that has been in our greens, which is for the St Ives Rotary, the St Ives Food and Wine Festival. So it'll be a non-pecuniary and non-significant. I'm a member of the St Ives Rotary. I no longer sit on this committee, but I have in previous years. So I will leave the chamber and not on vote on this item. And then GB11, which is the Environmental Levy Grants Program. Wild Things New South Wales, I'm a current committee member on that. So again, a non-pecuniary, non-significant, and I will also leave the chambers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. GB1, sponsorship, Marion Street Theatre for Young People, non-pecuniary interest.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. I have a non-pecuniary and insignificant conflict for GB1 as well for sponsorships, as I'm the President of Ku-ring-gai Rotary Community Network, which is a satellite club of Ku-ring-gai Rotary and is one of the clubs supporting the Bobo, and I'll happy to sit out the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Confirmation of reports to be considered in closed meeting. General Manager.
Mr Mayor and Councillors, in late Councillors' information there is 3 memos. The first in relation to GB1 from the Director Community regarding Council sponsorship allocations 2023-2024. The second is GB2, memo from the Manager Governance and Corporate Strategy in relation to GB2 review of ward boundaries, clarification. And GB15, a memo from the same officer re correction to minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 20th of June 2023.
And confirmation of reports to be considered in closed meeting.
Mr Mayor and councillors, there are no reports per se, but a number of attachments. GB1 Council Sponsorship Applications 2023-2024, attachments 1 through 14. GB6 Heads of Agreement Northern Suburbs Football Association and Ku-ring-gai Council, attachments 1 and 2. GB7 Active Transport Reference Committee Recruitment of Members, attachments 1 to 3. GB12 Reclassification Planning Proposal 261 Mona Vale Road, St Ives, 1186 to 1188 Pacific Highway Pymble, 1192 Pacific Highway Pymble, attachment 3, and GB13 Draft Planning Agreement Exhibition Roseville Memorial Club, attachments 2 and 3.
Thank you, General Manager. Confirmation of minutes. Councillors. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Ward. All those in favour? Confirmation of minutes? Yep. Councillors, with the items to be considered in closed meeting, I need a motion that those remain confidential. Moved by Councillor Kay, seconded by Councillor Lennon. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Minutes from the Mayor. We have 2 this evening. First one is in regards to the King's Birthday Honours. I am pleased to inform you that 12 Ku-ring-gai citizens, through their outstanding achievements and services to the community, have been awarded 2023 King's Birthday Honours. We are very proud to have these dedicated and talented Australians of the Ku-ring-gai community. I would like to read to you their names of these special citizens, and on behalf of Council, congratulate them on their excellent contributions to Australian society. Mr David Thomas Anthony, AM of Turramurra, for significant service to the agricultural sector and to the community of Narrabri. Mrs Fiona Elizabeth Balfour, AM of Roseville, for significant service to corporate governance and to the aviation sector. Mr Michael Yu Tu Chow, OAM of St Ives, for service to the community through a range of organisations. Mr Alan Raynor Cole, OAM of Wahroonga, for service to the community of Turramurra. Mrs Leslie Sharon Guild, OAM of St Ives, for service to business and commerce in Ballarat. Mrs Susan K Hamilton, OAM of North Turramurra, for service to softball and to lawn bowls. Mr Jeffrey Howard Newman, OAM of Killara, for service to philately. Dr Irene O'Connell, OAM of St Ives, for service to the law. Mr Simon Pennington, OAM of Pymble, for service to rowing. Miss Rose Marie Radley, AM of Wahroonga, for significant service to community health and to the nursing profession. Mrs Jeanette Joy Tsulas, OAM of West Pymble, for service to the Jewish community. Mr Christopher Charles von Weiler, AM of Gordon, for significant service to science and technology development. On behalf of Council, I congratulate all these award winners on their outstanding achievements. Ku-ring-gai should be proud that it has so many citizens being recognised at the highest levels for their selfless dedication, commitment and contribution to local, national and international communities. I move that Council acknowledge these outstanding contributions made by these recipients of the King's Birthday Honours 2023 to the Ku-ring-gai community and to the well-being of our society. B, that the Mayor, on behalf of Council, write to the recipients to congratulate them. Council, does anybody wish to speak in regards to any of these worthy recipients? There being no speakers, I'm happy to move that. All those in favour? That is unanimous. The second mayoral minute is in regards to the Australasian Local Government Management Challenge. The purpose of this mayoral minute is to acknowledge the tremendous achievements of our council in representing New South Wales for 2 years running in the finals of the Australasian Local Government Management Challenge. The Management Challenge is an annual event hosted by Local Government Professionals Australia, an association representing councils in Australia and New Zealand. As its name suggests, the challenge seeks to develop young and emerging local government leaders through a series of tasks designed to challenge their leadership capabilities. Participating councils select a team of 6 and various mentors, usually senior managers, to guide and advise them before the challenge starts. Each team participates in a pre-challenge task, which simulates a real-life scenario in our council. Teams are then pitted against each other in a fast-paced regional day of various challenges and scenarios. In 2022, the Ku-ring-gai Council team won the New South Wales Regional Final and competed in the National Finals that year. This year, a brand new team from Council has again won the New South Wales Regional Final of the Management Challenge and will go on to compete at the National Finals later this year. It is almost unprecedented for a team from the same council to win a regional challenge 2 years in a row. Both the 2022 and 2023 council teams deserve praise for this excellent result and for representing New South Wales councils in such an exemplary way. On behalf of our council and our community, I wish the Ku-ring-gai Council team all the best in the national finals of the challenge. We're extremely proud of your achievement. And I move that Council acknowledge the outstanding achievement of the team and wish them well for the national finals next month. Any councillors wish to speak to this? I'm quite happy to do so. When we won the award for this unprecedented time, it was, I think, beyond belief that any council could actually achieve 2 in a row. And if memory serves, and if the General Manager might want to correct me, I don't believe it's ever been done.
No, Mr Mayor.
So for a council which covers approximately 125,000 people, to win this management challenge 2 years in a row is a phenomenal effort. And the mix of talent that we have that comes through the management challenge, you will see that these staff members will continue to grow and blossom. Even from the prior year, those participants in that team, I have seen them become far more confident. They will become our future leaders in local government. So on behalf of Council, we should feel extremely proud and yet humble that our mix of both male and female, and I think predominantly female, within our management teams over the last 2 years have excelled to be the best in New South Wales. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Councillors' petitions. No petitions this evening. I invite councillors to nominate any item on the agenda that they wish to have a site inspection. Councillor Kay.
GB 13, the draft planning agreement, exhibition Roseville Memorial Club. Can I ask a question? I'd just like to clarify, Director, have we actually had any site inspections on this particular site over the past X amount of years? And would it be relevant at this point in time to actually have a site inspection?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's my understanding there has been a number of site inspections over time. The planning controls and the rezoning controls are all in place. The development application, there is a standing approval from the Land and Environment Court, and there's another application under assessment at the moment. And the voluntary planning agreement really only serves to implement those two planning controls and planning DAs. So at this point in time, I wouldn't have thought a lot would have been achieved from revisiting the site.
So a second for the planning, second for the site inspection. So all those in favour of having a site inspection? No, seconder.
I've got a question.
We actually can't debate it.
It's a question. No one allowed to ask a question.
No, unfortunately, there's no questions nor debate on whether we have a site inspection or not. So all those in favour of the site inspection? That is Councillor Kay, Councillor Taylor, Greg Taylor. All those against? Will be the remainder of Councillor Spencer, Councillor Nye, Councillor Lennon, Councillor Martin, Councillor Alec Taylor, Councillor Martin Smith, Councillor Ward, Councillor Pettit. We're not having a site inspection. I invite councillors to nominate any items on the agenda that they may wish to adopt in accordance with the officer's recommendation, allowing for minor changes without debate. Councillor Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we do that, I would like to move a motion to suspend standing order to deal with QN1 before GB1. Yeah, seconder.
Seconder for that is Councillor Kay. All those in favour of suspending standing orders bringing QN1 forward? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Councillor Spencer.
So I'll move on to GB1, or do we deal with QN1 now? Deal with QN1?
We can do the items without debate first.
Okay, thank you. So GB1 officer's recommendation?
You actually
I'm
got
sorry.
you've got multiple councillors there,
Yes.
so I might actually leave. I would suggest that you leave that one till
Oh,
later in the
okay.
evening. Yep.
I'll skip that one.
Yep.
So GB2 officer's recommendation,
With the late memo, that is seconded by Councillor Kay.
that's right, that's with the late information.
All those in favour of GB2, that is unanimous. Thank you.
GB3 officer's recommendation,
Moved by Councillor Spencer, seconded by Councillor Alec Taylor. All those in favour, that is unanimous.
GB4 officer's recommendation,
Moved by Councillor Spencer, seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour, that's unanimous.
GB5 officer's recommendation,
Moved by Councillor Spencer, seconded by Councillor Lennon. All those in favour, that's unanimous.
I'll leave GB6. GB7 officer's recommendation,
Moved by Councillor Spencer, seconded by Councillor Lennon. All those in favour, that is unanimous.
GB8 officer's recommendation,
Moved by Councillor Spencer, seconded by Councillor Wheatley. All those in favour, that's unanimous.
GB9 officer's recommendation,
Moved by Councillor Spencer, seconded by Councillor Ward. All those in favour, that's unanimous.
GB10 officer's recommendation,
Moved by Councillor Spencer, seconded by Councillor Wheatley. All those in favour, that's unanimous.
GB11 officer's recommendation.
We do
Sorry?
have Councillor Kay who did
Oh,
declare
I'm sorry.
a conflict.
Sorry, I forgot.
You can just leave and go in and out if...
Close your ears.
So GB11's moved by Councillor Spencer, seconded by Councillor Ward. All those in favour? That is unanimous with Councillor Kay out of the chambers. We'll just get her back in.
So officer's recommendation. Should I continue?
You can continue, yes?
So we've done GB 11.
Yep.
So I'll leave GB 12. I'll
Yes.
leave GB
I would
12
leave G-
and GB 13 officer's recommendation.
if Councillor...
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right, we'll let Councillor Wheatley leave. So GB13 moved by Councillor Spencer.
Officer's recommendation.
Yes. Seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? That is unanimous. We'll
Okay.
just get Councillor Wheatley back.
Thank you, Councillor Alec. Ready? All right. GB 14 officers' recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Spencer, seconded by Councillor Kay. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
And GB 15 with the Greens.
Yes, with the late memo. It's moved by Councillor Spencer, seconded by Councillor Ward. All those in favour? That is unanimous.
So should we deal with GB 1 now, or?
Yep, we can do GB1 if
Alright.
all four councillors wish
All
to.
those conflicted, please.
Good thing we can have one more. We'd have no. Exactly, no quorum, no grant. Yeah. Okay.
So that's GB1. Should
GB1, yes.
Should I continue? GB1?
Yep.
Officers' recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour?
And that
That
concludes
is-
all the GB items.
That's it. We'll get those councillors back in.
Leave them there.
Yes. Yep. Yes. Yeah. So we got the killing. Yep. So we got the question. And GB6. That's it. All right, councillors, we move to QN1, which is the question with notice by Councillor Spencer, to be answered by Director Watson.
Through you, Mr Mayor, if I can just ask if we can scroll down the page a bit. So people can read the question. I was only intending to read the answer, not the question and the answer, if that was satisfactory.
Yes.
The answer to question 1, it is not Council's intention to raise questions about the Multisport Community Facility Fund 2022-23 grant application process with either the NSFA or the New South Wales Office of Sport. Council did not provide owner's consent to accompany that grant application. The answer to the second question, it is not Council's intention to raise questions about compliance with the Multisport Community Facility Fund 2022-23 grant application guidelines with either the NSFA or the New South Wales Office of Sport in accordance with Council's resolution of February 2023 ordinary meeting. Staff are progressing with the development of a draft heads of agreement for the project on the assumption, among other things, that all capital costs, operating costs and whole of life cycle costs for the project will be borne by the NSFA and that all capital funds are available to Council prior to going to tender for construction. The answer to the third question, it is not Council's intention to raise questions about the female-friendly community sport facilities and lighting upgrades 2022-23 grant with either the NSFA or the New South Wales Office of Sport. Council did not provide owner's consent to accompany the grant application, and there are emails in Council's records to that effect. By way of email to all councillors dated 19th of July 2023, providing correspondence to the Office of Sport dated 22 November 2022, NSFA in that letter states in part, Ku-ring-gai Council have advised that they are not currently in a position to provide a landowner consent form to accompany the NSFA's female-friendly community sport facilities and lighting upgrades grant program grant application. The reason provided is that the final consent of Council to commence construction of the project would be subject to a separate resolution of Council and a licence or lease on terms consistent with Council's management of community land and recreation policy. That's the end of the...
That's the end of the response. Thank you. We now move to the last item, which is GB6, and I seek a motion. Councillor Smith,
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation.
and seconded by Councillor Wheatley. Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, I would like to move the officer's recommendation as printed. I think it's important to note that prior to this council meeting this evening, we had a briefing in relation to all items to deal with the heads of agreement, and we actually found that there was no real issue in moving forward with that. I think it's important that we get an understanding of what has actually been put forward here. We've got the opportunity where there's a heads of agreement that has been put forward, which is a great example of what council working together with the community can deliver, and can deliver an asset at absolutely no cost to the ratepayer of Ku-ring-gai. I believe that it's important that as councillors we are here today is to serve the community, not a minority of the community, I mean the entire community, where we've got the opportunity to provide a stand that offers change rooms, toilets, meeting rooms, and importantly, somewhere to sit in the rain and the wind and to be out of the sun. This process has been open and transparent right through the entire process and has given
Councillor
many
Smith, one moment.
opportunities.
I would remind the gallery in the front row, while you're not necessarily speaking, you are mouthing certainly words which are inappropriate. I would ask you to refrain from that.
This is a joke. You guys should all be ashamed of yourselves. Absolute disgrace.
You're building this in a bushfire zone with the highest population of
Please resume your seat.
Lives in North Turramurra. Nobody. You're a disgrace, all of you.
You're not listening to the community, and it's all about the money. It's elderly people, and it's their lives, and a bushfire zone.
I would also remind the gallery that we do actually have children present, so appropriate behaviour would be greatly appreciated. Councillor Smith, if you would continue.
Thank you. As I had previously stated, the process has been open and transparent. This project was approved, I think, which is very important, has been...
Please resume your seat. There will be no discussion from the gallery. Thank you.
This project was approved by an independent planning panel, named the Ku-ring-gai Planning Panel, which had all matters and everything before it made its decision. I think what's very important to note here, that this is a facility that can be delivered to Ku-ring-gai at no cost to our ratepayers. I think it's an important decision that this council has in front of it. I believe as councillors here this evening, we've got to stand up and do what is right for the community. And the community, I believe, with all the emails and the correspondence we've had, has been very clear that they do want this. So for these reasons, I would like people's support this evening.
With the gallery, I would ask that the gallery remains silent. Councillors actually have to listen in silence, so there will be no jeering, no clapping, no responses from the gallery. Councillor Wheatley as seconder.
I'm also in support of this particular item. I've actually just got a couple of questions that I would like to ask through you to the appropriate director, and I believe that will be Director Banasif. At last week's public forum, we heard claims from a resident from North Turramurra that there were dozens of ambulances travelling along Bobbin Head Road on a daily basis. Can you confirm how many ambulances travel along Bobbin Head Road, please?
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, New South Wales Ambulance reported an average, during the calendar year 2022, an average of 5 runs along Bobbinhead Road between Pacific Highway and the landings.
So that's five runs per week between the Pacific Highway. Five runs per week between the Pacific Highway down to the Marina Park. Is that correct?
Really, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In 2021, Council undertook a major road upgrade at Bobbinhead Road between Corrigal Road and Hartley Close. Can you please advise why the road widening wasn't considered?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the scope of works included the road widening to accommodate cycle lane. The scope of works included road widening to include cycle lane, parking bays, as well as a right-hand turning lane into the NTRA. With community consultation, as an outcome of that consultation, the right-hand turning lane was not constructed. The cycle lane has now fallen short at the entrance to the NTRA.
So to clarify, there was a right-hand turn lane that was considered for the entry to the NTRA, but it was removed because residents opposed it?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
So what you're saying is that council was prepared to pay for the upgrade to improve the traffic, but the scope was reduced by the same residents opposing this development based on traffic issues?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it was a grant-funded project, so technically the state government had funded that project.
Okay, thank you. Interesting.
Councillor Greg Taylor?
Good evening. I'd like to share with everybody here and online why I can't support this general business item this evening. Okay. I'd like to share with everybody here and online why I can't support this general business item this evening. Firstly, I can completely understand that this facility needs more facilities there. There's inadequate change rooms and inadequate toilets, and I would wholeheartedly support the development of toilets and change rooms. I understand the geographical location of this facility is ideal for NSFA, their scope being from Brookland to North Sydney, and this is about the centre point. I do understand these things, but contrary to what Councillor Smith has said, I feel that there's been way too much contention with the process for this development so far. Some things that have concerned me particularly is that there's no public transport. There's very minimal to no public transport to that area. I understand that often buses need to be hired by NSFA to get people out to that area. There's no increase or plan for parking increase to accommodate what is already, I feel, an extremely stretched parking facility for that venue without this development. Like's already been mentioned, the access and traffic is I feel, inadequate, and then if we go ahead with this development, I feel it will only get worse. Some of the two main reasons why I can't support this is that I feel that the grants have been applied for contrary to the guidelines. So the multi-sport community facility grant in the title sort of determines that it's a multi-sport community facility. It was put in the application that the sporting codes that this would help is netball, council, cricket, football, obviously, goalball, golf, hockey and schools. So if that was the case, if this asset did accommodate all of those codes, then I would be more inclined to support this. But I can't see. I've had communications from the netball in that area that they say this is just going to hurt their operation. I haven't specifically spoken to any of the other groups, but we heard at the public forum that cricket, it's not going to benefit cricket at all. I can't see how it's going to benefit golf whatsoever. I don't know how it would benefit them having change rooms, a media centre, a grandstand for golf. I'm not sure how that would work, and hockey included. I'm not sure how that would benefit them at all. In the grant, it also said that will only be used 65% by football. So that's to say those other codes will be using it 45% of the time, which I can't see how that's going to happen at all. And then also, they've already had one grant rescinded, the female-friendly community sport facility. That's been rescinded, and I worry that this multi-sport community facility fund is also going to be rescinded. And then we've gone to all of the trouble to go through this heads of agreement and for nothing. So the two main reasons why I can't support this development, this heads of agreement, is that the residents in that area have all paid for SRV, a special rate variation, and that entailed, and this is a quote from the application for special rates variation, that a children's playground will be provided, barbecue area will be provided, picnic area will be provided, walking trails to link up all those in the national park. That would all be provided, and none of those have been provided, and we're just getting a grandstand in that area. So I can't see how that's going to benefit all of the people that live in that area.
Again, as previously advised, there will be no clapping, cheering, etc. within the gallery. I would please ask you to remain silent. That is one warning.
Now
I'd ask you to be silent or leave the chamber. Thank you very much.
Now, I'm not sure what everybody knows about the council's financial sustainability at this moment, but from what I understand, it hinges on a special rate variation into the future. And if we've got residents in this area that are going to struggle to trust council's motivations of applying for this special rates variation, then I think it's extremely important that we do what we say when we're going to...
One more outburst and I will clear the chamber.
When we're asking for special rate variations. The final reason why I can't support this is that I can't see how this asset accommodates any future growth or future development. We keep getting told that this is not going to bring any more people to the venue, any more people to the sport in this area. So then why are we spending all this money on something that's not going to accommodate the potential for growth? And I think it's hugely important.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Your time has expired.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Taylor. I'm not sure that we actually are spending a whole lot of money. What we have before us is a proposal for a stand at North Turramurra. And I appreciate the concern of the local residents about traffic and noise, and that's been a concern for some time. And there have been issues, and they're in place now. Our issue tonight is whether the building of this stand will exacerbate those concerns about traffic and noise. And having heard from so many residents, and I thank all the residents from both sides who have communicated with us over the many, many months now, in fact, a year or more, I don't believe ultimately that this stand will have a material impact upon either traffic or noise along Bobbin Head Road. No, I say that because having heard from so many speakers, it's very clear that there's a cap upon interest in attending the semi-professional games. There's a certain number of people who will attend a game in perfect conditions. When the weather is mild, when there's no rain falling, people will get out and watch them, with one exception of one demographic. What I believe will happen if this stand does proceed is the people who currently do not attend because the rain is falling or because it's windy, because it's just generally an unpleasant evening or afternoon, will come along because of the stand. So we're not going to increase the traffic or the noise at peak periods. We're simply going to allow increased patronage in those difficult conditions where currently it is minimal. Now, the one exception I say to that, having heard from so many people, is elderly folk, because there are clearly a certain number of elderly people who would like to come along and watch games at North Turramurra who currently can't because they can't sit down. Those are the people who I suspect will come along if this stand does proceed. Now, these are people who... No, these people
Please remove her.
These people will typically come along with their children and their grandchildren, so they will not be exacerbating traffic issues. And quite frankly, elderly people are very polite. We're not going to have noise issues or antisocial issues with these people. I suggest that the concerns of the local residents are based upon very bad experiences for some years and in place now. I cannot see that this stand will exacerbate the issues that we now have. So I just suggest that we support this. I thus suggest that...
Councillor Lennon, one moment. This is the same person that's been interrupting previously. Can you please ensure that he has left the building? Councillor Lennon, if you would resume.
Thank you. As I was saying, the issues of traffic and noise are in place now. I simply do not believe that this stand will have a material impact upon those issues going forward. And in the absence of any exacerbation, I see the benefits of this stand have been outlined by many others. I don't need to repeat. So I'm thus supporting this motion because I see the benefit is there. And I suspect that if it does proceed in place, some months after it is in place, the locals will realise, well, actually, that isn't so bad after all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennon. Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, if I may ask a question through you to, I believe, would be probably Director Banassif. Just want to confirm, or Director Watson, is this proposal, does it change any of the booking times to the facility or any increased games to the facility?
Director?
By having the stand.
Too many lights on. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, I don't believe so.
Thank you. So what we're saying is, ultimately what we're offering here is the same amount of games being played at the facility and offering somewhere where people can, females can change privately in a change room, undercover, in a facility that is built for purpose and that has a benefit to the community. Would that be fair?
Director? Too many lights.
Many lights. Through you, Mr Mayor, they are major benefits of the proposal, yes.
Through to you again, Director Watson. Have we got any other facility in Ku-ring-gai that offers this type of a stand covering somewhere for people to play sports?
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's fairly safe to say that if this project proceeds, it would be fairly unique in Ku-ring-gai in terms of publicly available facilities. It's a level of facility we don't have now.
Thank you.
Councillor Kay?
I request that we move into confidential. I have some questions for our Corporate Director, Jamie Taylor, if I may.
Is there a second to move into confidential? That is seconded by Councillor Spencer. All those in favour? That is Councillor Kay, Councillor Spencer, Councillor Nye, Councillor Alec Taylor, Councillor Greg Taylor, Councillor Ward against, Councillors Nye, Councillor Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Pettit. That's carried. We will move into confidential. We will go next door. Whoa. Councillors, I seek a motion that we move back into open session. Moved by Councillor Alec Taylor, seconded by Councillor Nye. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, please. So the first one is just to clarify that this council has not provided consent for both the application for the sports grants.
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. There have been a number of grant consent forms issued over a number of years and development consent, but the two grant applications made in late 2022, being the Multi-Sport Facilities Fund and the Women in Sport Fund, Council expressly declined to issue owners' consent letters for both of those.
Could I just ask whether NSFA has been notified of Council's position in not giving consent?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the correspondence was with NSFA, so it was explicit to them that we did not give owners' consent in either of those two grant applications, and that should have been, it was unambiguous.
So do we have a procedure where speakers would come and claim they had consent when they didn't, that we can call them out? Perhaps.
Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Mayor and councillors, what we're talking about here is a dispute as to a fact. I think that's probably been already ventilated in this chamber. I don't believe there's any procedure beyond that within the meeting procedures of this council.
Thank you. Just a couple more questions, please. So there were two grants. One is for 3.6 something million, and another one is for about 500,000 for the female change room and so on. Now that one has been rescinded. Can you confirm and tell us why, please?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't actually confirm that. The CEO of NSFA made that claim at the public forum, and subsequently I think it was backed up in writing, but I have not seen evidence one way or the other. It's not my grant, so it's not as if council would have got notification from the Office of Sport directly about that. But that certainly was the claim that was made, yes.
So the second one has been rescinded?
Made, yes, Councillor Spencer.
All right. So just a couple more questions, please. In clause 4.6, question 4.6 of the grant application that was attached to the PDF that was provided to councillors, where NSFA said that the 3.6 million multi-grant facility was to be used by quite a few sports, as Councillor Taylor has alluded to in his earlier speech. Now, would council then have an issue that if the grant has been approved for this purpose, for those purposes, and then now it is monopolized by football?
Director.
I'm going to be very careful here, Mr. Mayor. Council did not vet or verify or edit the grant applications.
Correct.
Council was not party to the grant dissemination assessment process. There are facilities in the project that could theoretically be available to other sporting users. But the observation has been made here and in other places that the booking sheet for the playing services is almost full. So it would be theoretically, while they're theoretically available, it's theoretically difficult to get booking slots in a full calendar.
And the facilities, as we discussed earlier, that will be managed by NSFA, the stand and the officers and so on, because they paid for it, they'll manage it, and council will not manage that. Is that correct?
I believe that's actually in confidential in the heads of agreement.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Final question. Final question, thank you. And this is to Director George Bonasif. You earlier said that Ambulance New South Wales said that there's about 6 call-outs a day around Bobbin Head Road. Is that correct? 5 or 6 a week?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it was 5 per week.
So about 5 per week.
On average.
And that is from?
From the highway to the landings.
And that's from Ambulance New South Wales?
Correct, yes.
Do you have records of those private hospitals providing ambulance transport services, like from rehab, like from Lady Davidson, and so on, up and down? Those are ambulances too.
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the figures were from Ambulance New South Wales. We put a request out to them for those figures. They did advise that some of those calls were to the hospitals, but I don't believe they included patient transport.
All right, so those patient transport ambulances were not included?
I don't believe they were included, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right, that's all, thanks.
Councillor Kay?
You're ready. Through you, through the General Manager to the relevant Director, which I believe in this instance would be Director Watson. With the information that was provided to NSFA, was the Council surprised that both of these grants were approved? So I'm talking about the 3.6 and the 500K. Do you also have any knowledge of other grants that have been approved without an owner's consent?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe I'm in a position to answer the first question, which is as to whether I was surprised. I don't know that that's a question I should answer. But as to the second grant application, the second part of the question about owner's consent and successful grants, regretfully, from my perspective, that is extremely common. And quite often we only find out about it when various ministers publish lists of successful grants, and we quite often don't know about 70, 80% of them. And in some cases, unfortunately, it leads council to having to tell people who have got grant funding that they don't actually have owner's consent. So it's unfortunate. It's a common condition, but quite often commonly ignored.
Is that because they're not aware they need to get owner's consent? Like they're not aware of the process, rather than they were told and were defiant?
Director?
On the contrary, and I can't speak for every grant process, but the majority of them that I deal with on an annual basis, they're quite often semi-regular. It is very, very clear in guidelines, but I don't know how guidelines are interpreted or applied, but it is extremely clear that prior owner's consent is required, and many times it is not sought.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. Councillor Smith?
Mr. Mayor, through you to Director Watson, is it Council's decision on who gets a state government grant?
Director?
No.
So ultimately, the state government is responsible, it's their responsibility and ownership on who obtains a grant.
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes.
Is council
He's back.
acting unlawfully, signing a heads of agreement of what we are trying to do here this evening?
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the answer to that question is no. In fact, the heads of agreement, from my perspective, does its best to protect council's position and interests.
And at any time, if something was to be found to be that the council got uncomfortable with, are we able to withdraw from this heads agreement if we were to withdraw later after signing it?
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, except for particular clauses, it's a non-binding legal agreement, so the answer to that question is yes. And in the February report to council, it was clear that where possible we would be using the same template or type arrangements as we put in place for the basketball court at St Ives, and there are multiple places in that agreement where council can withdraw, and indeed the other party could withdraw from the project under certain given circumstances.
Thank you. And I suppose as a council, have we got any right to question the New South Wales government in their issue to this grant to the NSFA?
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think if council was of a mind to do that, that would be within council's remit.
Yep. So they've had the time for that. Thank you.
Councillor Spencer?
Thank you. I have a few follow-up questions, please. So, through you, Mr Mayor, perhaps to Director Watson, so the grants from the New South Wales government we have no say to, but do we have a say as to where the grant money can be applied, especially to our land?
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the grant was for specific purposes in a specific place. And
So
that is the project before council tonight.
So can the New South Wales government compel council to accept the grant to build the stadium
Through you,
or
Mr.
grandstand?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the grant is not council's grant. I'll concede there's some contention about owner's consent, but council did not vet, contribute to, otherwise the grant application was not part of the grant process, does not own the milestones in the funding agreement.
Sure.
It's not council's grant, not council's obligations under that agreement.
So if the New South Wales could compel council to accept the grant money and to build a facility, then we won't be here debating, isn't it?
Yes.
I think that's a fair summary, Mr Mayor, if I
Thank
understand
you.
the question.
Thank you. So coming back to the owner's consent, so if there was no owner's consent given by this council to any applicant for grants, and then they subsequently disregard our rule, and then it follows that we later on ratify what they have done incorrectly, so are we then going against our own rule and thus setting a precedent to other developers that, hey, guess what? You don't need owner's consent from here. Go get the grants. We'll just ignore Ku-ring-gai Council.
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I didn't actually see a question in that. I thought that was a
I
statement.
think you might need to rephrase that.
No,
as
no, it's a
brief-
question. Are we going against our own rule if we set a precedent that owner's consent can be disregarded and they go and apply for grants and then come back to us, we'll accept it anyway?
Through you, Mr Mayor, in the February report to council, the officer's report was clear that we had not given owner's consent.
Correct.
And council, paraphrasing what council did in February, has given me the authority to take the project to the point we are today. So council was aware in February 2023 that there was not owner's consents.
Right, thank you. So final question is that if we proceeded with the HOA tonight, then the costs, the question about cost, it starts today or tomorrow, and who is bound if the 3.6 million is being rescinded in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks' time?
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we would need to execute a heads of agreement, but the heads of agreement is fairly clear that from execution of that document, costs are to be borne by NSFA. We haven't yet worked out an arrangement where billing would be made, but in other cases, voluntary planning agreements, for example, we would invoice on a monthly basis, and we would expect them to be paid within ordinary commercial times, 28 days, whatever that happens to be. So no point in time, unless council gets a little bit behind in its paperwork, would we be more than one billing cycle behind in our expense recovery.
All right, so one final question is that how is this council and ratepayers protected if there was a cost blowout? For instance, the original application was for 6 million, and now it looks like it's going to be above 8 million.
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's what's contemplated here is a very similar process to what council did for the basketball courts at St Ives. Through that process, there would have been, and I don't know the exact number, but there would have been multiple quantity surveyors reports. There would have been peer reviews of quantity surveyors reports, and there would have been a final pre-tender estimate before going to tender. Now, we haven't got to the project deed position yet, but the contemplation is that prior to going to tender, council would have in its bank account the full amount of the pre-tender estimate, including contingencies. Now, in the event that, and there would be effectively what we call a walk-away price in the project deed, so that if, notwithstanding the best efforts to obtain an accurate pre-tender estimate, there was tenders that only came in above that pre-tender estimate, both parties would have the opportunity to withdraw from the project. And in the event that money was short, council would presumably give NSFA the opportunity to remedy that situation. It gets a little bit messy that far down the track, but you could theoretically at any point, including that one, start to redesign or change scope or value engineer, but it's too early days to contemplate where that might go.
So can I just seek clarification as to what you've just said, that the St Ives basketball court, that is a grant from the state government given to council to build jointly with New South Wales Department of Education. Is that correct?
That is correct, except that the high school's 2 basketball courts are already complete and in operation, and I can't remember exactly which round, but that grant funding came from similar programs to which NSFA has been applying.
Right, so the money comes to council, and we are taking the risk to build that the courts, correct? That's St Ives.
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Point of order, relevance, St Ives?
No, because he says, I'm trying to compare with this one. I'm getting, just want to clarify that.
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I believe that might be my issue, because I did make reference to the St Ives project simply because we said in the February report we were taking a similar path.
Okay, so it is, so there's a bit of a difference here, isn't it? Because this time the grant money is not given to Ku-ring-gai Council, it is given to NSFA, and they are supposed to bear all the costs, and no council would be free of liability, no cost incurred by council. But the distinction here, this is a question, is that, is it correct that the St. Ives one was the money is coming to council, whereas this one, the money doesn't come to council, but it goes to NSFA?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's a couple of distinct differences. Councillor Spencer is correct that in respect of the basketball courts, council was the grant applicant, and the funds will come to council. And in that case, they are a significantly lower proportion of the overall project costs. There's $3.5 million out of a project north of $20 million. At some point in time, in respect of the grandstand project, it would become incumbent upon council to talk to the Office of Sport about perhaps novating the grant funding across to council rather than the NSFA. But we haven't got to that point in time. But the most recent example of that would have been the extensions to Turramurra Memorial, where the clubhouse extension was applied for by Old Barker Rugby, and to facilitate construction, council effectively became the grant owner, then took on the contractual responsibility, the reporting responsibility.
Yes, I'm familiar with that one, yes. Thank you.
Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two questions of the General Manager, both of which have been asked and answered, but just for clarification. First of all, is Council lawfully able to pass the officer's recommendation at GB 6 tonight?
Director? General Manager, sorry.
Mr. Mayor and councillors, yes, we believe so, otherwise the report wouldn't be on the business paper.
And secondly, if and when we get to a point of a binding agreement beyond issues of costs with NSFA at some point in the future, will this matter come before council again for council to determine? Thank you.
On more than one occasion, Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, General Manager. General Manager, did you sign a letter of owner's consent for a multi-sport community facility grant?
Mr. Mayor, I signed two, the first one being in September 2021 and the second in February 2022. Both of those grants were unsuccessful by the applicant.
Thank you. So we actually have provided owner's consent with various grants.
But not for this one.
One moment. Just in regards to the heads of agreement, Councillor Greg Taylor did mention that public transport. You also mentioned that. Is the public transport have any relevance to the heads of agreement that we're voting on this evening, Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In fact, to the contrary, I made it clear in both this report and the February report that it was not appropriate for me to go back and seek to revisit matters considered in the development application process.
Okay.
So no, the heads of agreement does not deal with public transport matters, except where things may fall out of conditions of consent, but that's for a future point in time.
Thank you, Director. In regards to the SRV for when NTRA was built, who paid for that? Was it just the residents of North Turramurra, or was it the entire Ku-ring-gai LGA?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it was, happy to be corrected, I believe it was for 3 years and it was the whole of the LGA.
Okay, so just to clarify, the whole of the LGA paid for the NTRA development?
That's correct.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Greg Taylor?
Can I clarify that with that SRV, what was promised was a children's playground, a barbecue area, a picnic area, and walks to the national park?
Director, was that all part of the master plan? Which was before your time, and it was Director Piccone at that stage?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was there for the plan of the master plan, and there are lots of things in lots of master plans that don't necessarily get delivered. Those councillors who were there at the time would be aware that that project went reasonably over budget.
So that's a no then?
Just a final question here. If this GB item is carried, could that be construed as owner's consent in any way?
Director, I think you might have already answered.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe when I answered that question, I said that was perhaps inferred in the February 2023 decision of council.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
Councillor Smith.
Mr. Mayor, through to you, just a little bit further on that letter of support that you questioned the General Manager on. I'm looking at this particular letter, which is dated 9th of February 2022, which is 18 months ago, attentioning to Mr. Ed Wood Ferguson, the CEO at the time of NSFA. Now, it is very clear there that we are giving owners consent on this particular site, but at no point here does it state there's a rescind date or an expiry date or anything of the like. And I'm just putting forward that this letter being dated 18 months ago, prior to the grant application, I think that would be a reasonable expectation that that letter could be used.
Director Watson, is that your question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as I have said previously, it has been, in fact, there are more than 2 owners' consent letters. There's one, and I may not have the full suite, there's one from 2018, one from 2019, one from September 2021. There is separate development, consent to give development in September 21. There was a further grant support letter in February 2022. So it's custom and practice to seek a new letter for every grant application. And when similar requests were made in late 2022 for the multi-sport facilities grant round and the female-friendly sports grant round, owners' consent was sought and council staff explicitly declined to give owners' consent at that time. So where owners' consent was explicitly not provided, no, I do not think it is reasonable to go back and rely on a February the 9th, 2022 letter for grant support that was declined more than half a year later. No.
So I would put it to you then, if we've got a letter here that we supported, it really does start to, I suppose I'm trying to sort of stay out of what we went in the back in regarding confidential, but without getting caught up in the weeds of it, ultimately we've given approval for this site for this to go forward on an application, and at some point the council
Gallery,
officers,
please be silent in the back.
the council officers.
Ms. Cairns,
have
could you
decided not to
please
support
remain
it.
silent?
So for those reasons, I think that this is quite reasonable. Thank you.
Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. So earlier I asked a question about consent and whether we have a process of calling out speakers at the forum who claim that they had consent repeatedly when they didn't. So the question is that, do we then trust that same person that has told us that they had consent when they didn't, is now telling us that there's no cost to council for this project? No, completely no cost. It's a gift to council.
Is there a question there, Councillor
Yes.
Spencer? It's a long.
That's right.
A long question.
Do we trust this same person? I'll repeat again.
Succinct question.
All right. Yes. Do we trust a person that has been misleading us about having consent when he didn't, now claims that this project will cost nothing to council and to the ratepayers? It's a gift to this council. So the question is trust and facts.
Director, is anybody that we...
Through you, Mr. Mayor, all I would say there is that no matter who I deal with on whichever project it is of this type, I would put in place transaction documents designed to protect council's interests.
Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to speak against this motion, after which councillors probably will gladly jump in for, two against. Now, all of us as councillors, we've been elected to represent the people of Ku-ring-gai, and it's an enormous privilege. And I know when we fulfill our duties, sometimes there are tensions. Sometimes there are matters which are clear-cut. The vast majority support one thing and not another. That's pretty obvious what we probably should be doing. But sometimes it's a bit more ambiguous, such as this case. Now, we've had a number of residents from football or other sporting sort of families come to approach us with their petition that this proceed, and we've received their emails, we've taken their phone calls, and we appreciate that. We've also received a lot of correspondence from especially residents who live in the local area, who sometimes they would generally support sport, but on this particular occasion they don't. One of their main reasons being because of traffic. Now, another difficult thing during these times is that whether there's a group strongly for it or strongly against it, it feels like they throw in everything, including the kitchen sink, to argue their case and also to shoot down the opposing side's case. And to me, it's not really my personality. It feels a bit awkward when that thing happens. So, for one example, some residents say that during high bushfire season, they're going to be trapped, there's no way out, that sort of thing. I'm personally of the view that if it was bushfire season, if we can predict what's going to happen, NSFA isn't going to call matches. They'll postpone, they'll cancel, whatever. It will be a bit safer to get out of Bobbinhead Road. So that's just one example of extremism. However, my main concern is that Bobbinhead Road is really just one way in, one way out. Now, I've received an email from another member of NSFA, an employee actually, saying, look at all these fantastic facilities developed in other LGAs. Don't you want to be like them? And my answer is yes, I do want to be like them. I do want to have something like Cromer Park for Manly Warringah FA. I do want to have something like Christie Park for Northwest. I do want to have something like Pluim Park or Caddies Creek Stage 2. These are fantastic facilities. But if you look at each of these facilities, they have multiple ways in and multiple ways out, and they don't have traffic issues.
Again, I remind the gallery to listen in silence.
I have in the past...
Can you please remove that woman from the back? Again, she's continually interrupting.
Look, I do have a history in the past of rejecting certain football proposals in Ku-ring-gai, but only to support it happening somewhere else. Last council term, it was Mimosa Oval. Should we have synthetics at Mimosa Oval? I was very firm, no, it does not make sense here for traffic reasons mainly, for the site reasons, all sorts of things. But I said, let's look at Norman Griffiths. There's plenty of traffic options there. There's plenty of other alternate green space for dog walkers, all that sort of stuff. And we ended up having football facilities at Norman Griffiths. Similarly here with NTRA, look, I'd love to support a development like this. I think it does make sense if the infrastructure was there to support it. Now, if the state government or if someone else is willing to cough up the money to road widen Bobbinhead Road, 2 kilometre stretch from Burns Road through to NTRA, sure, I'll support it. Similarly, if someone wants to cough up the money to build a bridge across Lovers Jump Creek or Cowan Creek so that there's multiple ways in and out, sure, I'll support that, and we'll have multiple ways in and out. But in the absence of these alternate transport or increased capacity, my suggestion would be, let's think about where else these things could be built and whether or not we can get a proper grant application to support it. I note that West Pymble Football Club, their clubhouse isn't that great a state. Wouldn't it be great to see that upgraded? But just for the time being, look, I can't support this particular one at NTRA. I love the crickets, but But yeah, I think we need to put the horse before the cart, or whichever way it was. We need to think about the infrastructure first before we build things that increase demand. Thank you.
I've got just a brief question. Councillors, you would have received an email not that long ago on the 25th of July from a resident, and it was quite a lengthy one. One of the statements within that email was the heads of agreement, Northern Suburbs Football Association and Ku-ring-gai Council, will give NSFA exclusive use of the community land for a period of X years and at a rent of X dollars annually. Director, was all this confidential?
Yes, Mayor.
Director, can you surmise how this particular resident got our confidential heads of agreement?
Someone gave it to them, Mayor.
And who was this? Can you please ensure that she does not come back? Thank God for that. Director, who actually were the recipients of this confidential information?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the distribution of confidential agendas is really limited to the people in the room and some other key staff, but it's only people in the chamber and the front bench. A couple of people involved in production of agendas would have been aware, as would be some people who assisted me in preparing reports, but it's largely limited to the people in the front of the room.
Thank you, Director. And from my perspective, it is quite disappointing that such confidential information has gone out to the general public, which they've advised us of in their email. Councillor, we now have 2 for and 2 against. And therefore, I'm quite happy to move that be... Councillor Smith? So we'll move the 2 for, 2 against. Councillor Smith?
Yes.
And seconded by Councillor Wheatley. All those in favour that the motion be put? That is unanimous. As mover of the original motion, Councillor Smith, do you wish to sum up?
Yes, I do. I will sum up on this. I think it's very important. I think it's very important for all of us here tonight as councillors to make a decision that we were put in this council to do. Firstly, I think just with everything that's happened here tonight, I would just like to say that we've definitely confirmed that this is not an unlawful decision that we are deciding on tonight. We are able to make this decision, and that has been answered with the council officers here this evening. Secondly, I think it's very important to note that the residents are not going to be any further impacted by this stand being erected on this site. This has been done because of the amount of use and everything else that can be done. It is not going to bring any more people in. It's going to give people somewhere to sit. It's going to keep people out of the weather. It's going to let elderly people come in and watch their grandchildren play. And it's also going to give women the opportunity to get changed, where they're not having to hide in a car, hide behind somewhere in the Oval. It gives them the opportunity to actually go into a change room like a human being and be changed.
Seriously?
The next point is the infrastructure. I completely do not agree with Councillor Nye, is in place. We have had engineers, traffic engineers, to do a report that have reported back to this council and to the Ku-ring-gai local planning panel that this is fine. There's no issue. We can move on with it. So I'm very surprised that Councillor Nye managed to bring that up. Another thing, Councillor Nye appears to be a fire authority consultant. Again, we've had a report. Those reports have come back to this council. These have all been approved. As councillors, we are not here as experts. We are here as people to listen to the people and look at the reports and everything put in front of us. I think...
I object to that. I'm being misrepresented.
Is it that hard for the gallery to remain in silence? If you find it difficult to remain in silence, perhaps you should be leaving. Councillor Smith, continue.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to ask all the councillors here this evening to get behind something that is going to be good for Ku-ring-gai. This is going to benefit the community. I understand that there are other parts of the community that aren't happy with it, but unfortunately, whenever there's change, there's always this type of contention. It's up to us as councillors to step above this and make the decision that is right for Ku-ring-gai, and let these kids go and play soccer and literally go and actually be able to sit somewhere and watch their friends play soccer out of the rain, out of the sun, and I think it's very important. So for these reasons, I hope to get everybody's support here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. And before I call for the vote, I would remind the gallery, regardless of whether you are for or against this particular item, that you remain in silence once the decision is handed down. So all those in favour of the officer's recommendation, that is councillors I've got to move that sign. Councillors Lennon, Martin Smith, Councillor Wheatley, Councillor Ward, Councillor Pettit, Councillor Alec Taylor. Against? Councillors Kay, Councillor Spencer, Councillor Knight, Councillor Greg Taylor. That is carried. Extra reports circulated to the meeting. Oh, it's been that long. Oh. Yep, sorry. Councillors, we'll just take a brief break while those that have listened through GB6 need. We will have a 5-minute recess. I think we could all do with that. Let the gallery disperse. Moved by Councillor Councillors, we move to GB 12. And that appears to be very loud again.
Oh, sorry. No,
Excellent.
Oh, yeah, I think I'm going to ask, yeah.
Councillors, GB 12, I need a motion, and perhaps we could move to in seriatim for A, B and C. So, anybody wish to move GB 12? Councillor Kay?
So can I move seriatim separately? Or do you want me to do it in the one go?
In seriatim first, do we vote on?
We have to vote,
But,
yeah.
yeah, but I want to change the motion slightly.
No, you've got a seriatim first, right?
Oh, seriatim
In
first.
seriatim.
Okay, okay.
So that way we're
Well,
dealing-
I move seriatim.
Yep. And that's for points A, B and C.
That is correct.
Thank you. So that's moved by Councillor Kay, seconded by Councillor Spencer. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Councillor Kay?
Okay, so I just want to tweak the recommendation to put the word, so ABC, if I can get rid of D, E, F, G, and put the word that a planning proposal not to reclassify in front of each of those.
We've got to do it one by one.
Yeah, okay, so A, which is 261 Mona Vale Road. Am I able to talk on all of the items as a whole? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You'll need a seconder for that, point A. Seconded by Councillor Greg Taylor. Before, one moment.
Yeah, just not. It says not to, or not to reclassify. All I need is not Andrew Taylor. Not.
Sorry, is this the same as page 284? Is the wording the same?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I just confirm with Mr. Watson or Mickey, that's all I need to do? Yeah.
Thank you, Director.
Yeah, because it doesn't relate.
So D to G, D to G.
I don't need D to G, no. Because they're all gateway.
Councillor Kay?
Okay, so B, which is 1186 to 1188, so basically the same. But a planning proposal.
Yep, they've all been done.
They're all done, okay,
Yes.
okay. That means now I can speak. So I'll be speaking, I'll put them as separate parcels, but as the one 5 minutes. Is that okay?
Three items.
Can I do it as, it's,
15 minutes, three items.
She speaks on all of them.
no, I just want to speak once.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I would suggest that we have speaking just on point A.
I just don't want to take up 5 minutes for each. I can just, yeah.
Unless they're not the same, if they're the same, they're just right?
I can divvy it up. I'll divvy it up. I can speak separately on the items. for
I
a
would
couple of
suggest, yes, you speak separately on the item. One moment.
On the basis Councillor Lennon's got a conflict declared in relation to points B and C,
But he's staying in the chamber.
With the permission of the Mayor, I would actually like to stay in the chamber,
that-
given the
that's-
nature of the particular conflict.
Okay, that's fine then.
Okay, so are we voting, so just so
We're
I'm
voting in
clear?
seriatim,
We're voting seriatim. Okay, so I'll
and
just
therefore
speak.
any amendment would be in seriatim as well too.
Okay, so I'll speak on A, just quickly. Okay, which is the, let me just, it's 261 Mona Vale Road, St Ives. Okay, so just quickly on that one, I can't see enough benefit to reclassify other than the childcare having potentially longer hours of operation and council having more controls in place and with long-term leases, etc. As I cannot see the immediate benefit to the community, I feel at this stage we would be put at risk of divestment as we're already zoned R4, and I'm not prepared to take that risk. So I am concerned about converting community land and reclassifying to operational.
And seconder, Councillor Taylor.
I reserve my right.
All right, councillors, just to explain this situation to you, if we put an amendment which is a negation of Councillor Kay's motion, that's not allowed. That's not allowed. So if this motion does not pass, it will lapse and we get to bring it back next council meeting. Is that correct? So if one of those parts goes down,
Someone has to foreshadow that they'll be actually moving in the motion to reclassify.
so somebody will need to foreshadow that they will have to foreshadow a motion, which is, I'll let the General Manager explain that because this is a little bit more complicated.
So, Mr Mayor and councillors, as it stands now, you've got 3 items in seriatim not to reclassify. If a councillor was of a mind to reclassify, that would be a direct negation of the current motion, so you'd need to foreshadow. So once these 3 parts are voted on, if one of them goes down, you would then need to replace it with your foreshadowed amendment. In the absence of that, the matter would lapse as if it was never considered and would come back. So if one of these parts is to be defeated, it needs to be replaced with something else.
Question for you, General Manager. What words would be required for us to make a decision to not reclassify and for it not to lapse? What are the words that we would need to vote on to decide not to submit a planning proposal to reclassify? So is it possible to make that decision tonight, that we won't reclassify?
Absolutely. If these 3 parts, the motion moved by Councillor Kay, get up, that's it. The decision is final. There's no reclassification.
I thought you said it lapsed.
I'm saying if one of these 3 parts was defeated,
Okay,
and there is nothing
I
else,
beg
it
your
would
pardon.
lapse.
I'm finally on the program. Thank you.
So, Mr Mayor, perhaps to the General Manager as well, these are 3 distinct motions. The point about being in seriatim is that they are quite distinct. This is not one motion in 3 parts. These are 3 distinct motions. So I fail to see why the passing or non-passing of any one of them should affect the other 2.
You're correct, Councillor, and it wouldn't affect the other 2, but if one goes down and is not replaced, that parcel comes back. That parcel lapses. Not the whole 3.
So you would have to foreshadow and...
So you would have to foreshadow if you're of a mind to do that, and you would have to bring the parts of the original officer's recommendation back in as well.
So foreshadow a motion on... Foreshadow a motion, foreshadow an amendment on part A of parts. Okay, so foreshadow an amendment, foreshadow motion. So councillors...
Mr Mayor,
Yes.
may I just ask a question? Could we not have had these 3 items separately because they are not interrelated? They are separate properties, aren't they?
Yes, they are. However, this is the way the report's written. Where 3 are bundled within the one particular report. So basically, we've separated them now.
Well, it's worth setting up better for the future.
That's all I've got to do is just foreshadow.
A question. Are any of these 3 time sensitive? Was like, let's say something lapses, so what, we'll deal with it next month? Like, I don't see what the fuss is, actually.
If anything, the report would come back in the same format. Is that correct, Director?
Don't know the answer to that, Mr Mayor. If only one site lapsed, I would presumably try to modify the report to only bring back the one item, which is irregular but probably understandable under the circumstances.
May I suggest that in future reports in the business papers they be distinct, that the 3 of them not be put in together? When you've got distinct parcels of land, even if they're adjoining in some cases, when they're distinct parcels of land, they have separate issues, and I suggest they be separate reports.
Okay, so what I'll do, I will foreshadow an amendment on points A and C. Does that work? So by foreshadowing the amendment on points A and C, that will give you an opportunity to vote one way or the other on it. All right? Is that somewhat clear?
Yes.
So on point A, we have foreshadowed an amendment.
No, vote on the motion.
We've got to vote on the motion first. And the motion is that the planning proposal to reclassify 261 Monavale Road not be submitted. All those in favour? That is Councillors Kay, Councillor Nye, Councillor Greg Taylor, Councillor Alec Taylor. Against? That is Councillors Spencer, Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Ward, Pettit. That is lost. Do we deal with that? We'll come back to it. We'll go to point B. And this is that the planning proposal to reclassify 1186 to 1188 Pacific Highway not be submitted. All those in favour?
Can I just speak on it?
If you want
I'll just be quick. It's not and just,
I guess my question is anybody in dissent of this particular motion? We can just vote on it, Councillor Kay, if that suits your needs?
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favour of not reclassifying 1186 to 1188? All those in favour? That is unanimous. We move to point C, that our planning proposal to reclassify 1192 Pacific Highway is not submitted. All those in favour?
sorry, can I speak?
You can speak on that one too if you wish.
All right, so I'll just be quick. Sorry, getting my notes organised. So this is also known as the secret park. That's not really a park. Last time this came to council, it was defeated by a casting vote to proceed to divestment. We have a lack of green corridors and green space. We have not achieved our delivery program of tree planting in our green corridors. Previously, a petition was forwarded with 78 signatures to protect this green space, which was from nearby residents. We have critically endangered plant communities on this site, and I'm not convinced that we have the protections in place, and legislation can only go so far. We have had tree poisonings on the rise in our LGA, as well as illegal tree removal. Once green space is gone, it's gone. We should be doing what we can to protect this space. I've just got a couple of questions too, if I can venture into those questions. Okay, so through you, General Manager, to the relevant director, and I will start with you, Director Watson. Could you please provide me a detailed history and timeline of the secret park? I believe this was inquired, and I stand to be corrected, in 1979. Could you take me through why we purchased this parcel of land, and is the process as to what has happened and where we are at here today, quite a few years later?
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Broadly covered on page 288 of the officer's report. Formerly Water Corporation land, acquired in 1979. It's never been declared as a public reserve. It has always been some sort of high-density residential. It still contains significant water easements. The trees are already protected under the LEP, and like I say, it's never been used or declared a public reserve.
Thank you. Just one more question. This will be for Director Benasif. Sorry, through you, General Manager, to Director. Could you please advise me of the number of infringements, including tree poisoning, in the last 2 financial years, and highlight the increase and reason as to why you think this has occurred? And could you also let me know where we are at with green corridors and tree planting, as I consider this a green corridor?
Director, is this a green corridor?
That would...
Director Watson, is this a green corridor?
Mr Mayor, as I said in my previous answer, the trees are protected.
Director Benasif?
Through you, Mr Mayor, in terms of infringements, last financial year we received 618 allegations for tree breaches. Of the 619, 15%, that is 90 pins were issued. In the financial year prior to that, were 487 allegations, and 54 pins were issued, which is about 11%. In terms of the rise or the increase, a little bit hard to pinpoint where the issues stem from, but it could be due to the fact that our education program is in full swing, and being in full swing, more and more members of the community are alerts of any potential tree breaches within the community. Can I just request a second
About
part?
the green corridors was the next
yes, correct.
question.
So our tree planting program this year, we planted through our tree planting program 116 trees. That's down from the previous year of 140, and the reason for that is last financial year we installed some significantly larger trees.
Point of order.
Yes, Councillor Smith.
Sorry, Director Benasif, but I'm trying to understand the correlation between our planting of trees to
this side.
Yeah, to this site. Has this site got something to do with planting trees, or are we?
This is referring to a green corridor, which is what this is. It's not a park. It doesn't classify as a park. It is a green corridor.
Director Watson, is this a green corridor? Again?
No.
Mr Mayor, at the moment we're not doing tree planting there. The existing trees are preserved.
What they are, okay. Therefore, Councillor Lennon?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I certainly see this as being a green corridor. I think it's a wonderful piece of land. I know the trees are very precious to the neighbours in the area. I feel like the best way to look after this green corridor is actually in private ownership. I feel like the ownership by an adjoining block, if that is where we end up, or whoever, is a chance to look after this land. As has been said, we have the tree preservation orders in place, and goodness knows there's a lot of issues with illegal tree removal across the municipality and beyond. And I hope we continue to press some state government and other legislative and practical changes on that issue. But in terms of this particular piece of land, it's a mess. And I feel like the best way to make it nice and to make it the valuable green corridor that it is in private ownership. So while I share all the sentiments and admirable sentiments of Councillor Kay, I just feel as a practical matter, the way forward for this council in this area is in private ownership of this particular block. So I'll be supporting the reclassification and opposing the motion as it now stands, not to submit. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, I'll be speaking against this notice of motion. I do support everything that has been said here tonight, the importance of the trees, but as we've actually had it clarified here this evening, this tree is protected. It's not going to become unprotected by reclassification. It will fall into ownership to another property who can maintain it and look after it, because it certainly isn't at the moment. Thirdly, I think it's important that we actually take some financial responsibility with this council in trying to pay down some of our expenses. And I believe that this should be a pretty straightforward decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any further speakers? I'll put that the motion to not reclassify 1192. All those in favour? That is Councillor Kay, Councillor Spencer, Councillor Nye, Councillor Ali Taylor, Councillor Greg Taylor against. Councillors Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Ward, Pettit. I will use my casting vote to vote against that particular motion. We now move back to my foreshadowed amendment.
Which now becomes the new motion, Mr Mayor.
Which is now the new motion, which is the officer's recommendation for points A, C and D. And E. Because we no longer require F and G, because that one is not proceeding. And I seek a seconder for that. Councillor Smith. So we'll just wait till that comes up on the board.
Yeah, it's... Yeah, okay, that's it. They got it.
Yep.
That's it.
All clear, councillors, so that is to reclassify 261 Mona Vale Road and also to reclassify 1192 Pacific Highway.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, fine.
Councillors?
Sorry, is this still seriatim?
No.
No, not on this one. Yeah. All good?
Yeah, just vote on it.
Yeah, there's a problem because there's...
Just flag it so that bring it back this way.
Right, yes, okay.
Just vote for the childcare. They got the number against.
No, we probably don't need to go in seriatim for
Okay.
that. Yep. And I don't think we really need to speak anything more to that. I think we're all fairly crystal clear on both those particular properties. All those in favour? Both. Both. So that is Mona... Yep, A and C. So that's Mona Vale Road and 1192 Pacific Highway, Pymble. So all those in favour? For both, yes. That is Councillor Spence. Councillor Spence, are you up or down? We have checked with both Director Marshall and the General Manager.
So you can have a single motion moved as a foreshadowed amendment on two individual motions. That's okay. You can have a single amendment that covers both of those two motions.
General Manager, would you like to confirm that for councillors?
Mr Mayor and councillors, Councillor Taylor's correct. The mover of the foreshadowed motion can put it in any form, and if you look back to the business paper, in fact, as Councillor Lennon pointed out, the original officer's recommendation grouped 3 together, so grouping 2 together. If councillors wanted to break them up and vote in seriatim, they could, but there's nothing illegal about putting them together for a vote.
Sorry, then, can I speak? Because if we're going to vote as a whole thing,
We can vote. We can do it in seriatim if
Okay.
that suits you. All right. So we'll do A first, which is to reclassify Monavale Road. All those in favour? That is councillors Spencer, Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Ward, Pettit. Against councillors Kay, Nye, Alec Taylor and councillor Greg Taylor. That is carried. C, which is the 1192 Pacific Highway. All those in favour of reclassifying that? That is councillors Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Ward, Pettit. Against councillors Kay, councillor Spencer, councillor Knight, councillor Greg Taylor, councillor Alec Taylor. That's 5-5. I will use my casting vote in favour of reclassifying that, so that is passed. And we need to do D and E together. So all those in favour of points D and E, which is just procedural, which is as per the original officer's recommendation. We have to vote on that. All those in favour of points D and E. That is councillor Spencer, Nye, Lennon, Smith, Wheatley, Ward, Pettit. Against councillors Kay, councillor Alec Taylor, councillor Greg Taylor. That is carried.
Extra reports.
Extra reports circulated to the meeting.
There are none, Mr Mayor.
Business without notice, subject to clause 9.3 of the Code of Meeting Practice. There is none. We've dealt with the questions with notice. There is no inspections. Declare the meeting closed.